The following program is intended for mature audiences.
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And download every episode and more at basicallyasportshow.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg,
Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Yeah! Let's talk about some more big ESPN personality news. This summer, ESPN's already lost Bill Simmons. They're going to lose Keith Olbermann when his contract's up at the end of the month. And now, Colin Cowherd is going to leave ESPN and join Fox Sports.
Really?
Ooh.
Yes.
Come on, Keith. Follow him. That's where you got to go, Keith. Suck it up and take that Rupert Murdoch money.
Yep. Why is he leaving, did he say?
I think his contract's up. ESPN's statement said, "We've enjoyed a mutually beneficial run with Colin for over a decade. He came to national prominence on ESPN with his unique perspective on sports and society. Endings also bring new beginnings for ESPN and for Colin, and we thank him and wish him the best."
One of the things they said about Olbermann leaving, and I don't know that I believe this much, is that it was a cost-cutting measure.
I have a theory about this whole cost-cutting thing and why I generally do buy the theory that Olbermann and Simmons were let go because they were criticizing, the Shield. There is part of me, due to something, and this is going to be a rare case where Bass has an inside track on something.
Wow, we do?
Kind of.
Okay.
Wait,
let me cue up the exclusive music here real quick.
Okay. So, I'm trying to figure how I can frame this to make the most amount of sense without giving too much away.
Okay.
I know someone who's fairly in the know regarding how Disney operates at the corporate level.
Now, before you go any further, are you betraying anyone's trust by bringing this up?
No, no, I am not. This was never brought to me, quote unquote, off the record. There was nothing qualifying like that.
We have hit the big time here. We're worried about being off the record and all that. Look at us go.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
From what he told me, Disney's in a situation, of course, Disney is the company that owns ESPN, where Wall Street looks at their earnings every year and says, okay, now double that for next year, where that it's not good enough to just maintain growth. They always have to keep expanding. And that because of this, Disney management is very reluctant to invest much of what they make back into the company. They want to just keep stockpiling the cash and assets, more or less.
Wow.
That's a gross oversimplification of what I was told, but that's basically what it boils down to. So it's entirely possible that Disney looked at the books at ESPN and said, okay, you need to cut X amount of dollars from payroll.
From a big picture perspective, that makes perfect sense that you want to cut back on the fat, I suppose. But I'm thinking I don't know how much Cowherd makes, but I got to think in the grand scheme of things overall, it isn't enough to,
I think of the radio guys, he probably makes the most, though.
But then again, by the same token, ESPN also knows they've got far more clearance on stations than Fox Sports Radio does.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading more into this, and supposedly Cowherd's frustration was that his radio simulcast, because all these ESPN radio shows, they're also shown on TV, right? But they're all on different channels on different times. So Cowherd's was on ESPNU during the day. And he wanted it to either be on ESPN or ESPN2, but the problem is when his show is airing, SportsCenter is on ESPN and First Take is on ESPN2.
He's the radio guy. His first job is to be a radio host. He shouldn't... the fact that he's on TV at all, what that tells me is that they don't have anything. First, it's cheap. It's not costing them anything to put it on, but they're not putting that stuff on there because it gets great ratings. It's because it fills time. Yeah. His job is as a radio host, not as a guy to worry about where he's at on TV.
Right. The other unique thing is during his time at ESPN, Cowherd also was a main host of Sports Nation when it first rose up and became pretty popular. And he started his this college football show on Sunday mornings on ESPN2. Both of those were started by a producer named Jamie Horowitz, who earlier this year signed on with Fox Sports. Who was one of his co-hosts at Sports Nation? Carissa Thompson, who now works for Fox Sports. So, in theory, they could reunite those two, and the producer, too, We're not even if Carissa Thompson's still going to do whatever she's doing because she works for there and Entertainment Tonight, so she's busy all the time.
Yes, we follow her on Twitter for reasons I'm still not sure I understand, but
so you have Horowitz, who's a producer, and Cowherd, and they've produced successful stuff together before, so you could have that happen again.
Well, here's a question I'd like to throw into the mix with this cost-cutting stuff and all that, and Fox Sports is sitting back and going, hey, okay, fine, we'll take these guys.
Yeah, we'll take whatever you want to give us.
Rupert Murdoch isn't hurting for cash.
Do we think that this might be just a very small one, but could this be a tipping point that's kind of like leaning things where getting Fox Sports a little bit of momentum here? Because
it's giving them momentum, sure, yeah.
3 of the biggest names on ESPN are leaving. I don't like Colin Cowherd. I think he's a terrible radio host. Well, I guess he's a good radio host because
he gets people to listen, right?
He gets people to listen. Yeah, I shouldn't say he's terrible.
He gets people to listen, and he gets people to react to him.
Yeah, he's actually an excellent radio host. He's just one that I don't particularly care for.
Right.
But, they're losing their biggest name on radio. I heard Scott Van Pelt's leaving his radio show, too.
Right. Scott Van Pelt is leaving his radio show and doing like a late-night sports center, like his own thing. But now with Cowherd gone and SVP leaving, now you have Mike and Mike in the early morning.
That entire show is based around the premise that one of them's skinny and one of them's fat.
And one of them's not as fat as it used to be anymore, anyway.
I don't know how well it does. Morning, especially for a syndicated show, that's the toughest place to get any kind of foothold in the ratings, sports radio or otherwise, because everybody wants the local stuff in the mornings. So, yeah, Mike and Mike are the biggest names left, but I don't think they're the ones with the most clout.
Right. Well, I mean, but what it means is ESPN's radio division is pretty dry.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they at a time they had Mike and Mike and
Cowherd,
they
had Dan Patrick for a while. Yeah,
yeah, and now I think Van Pelt went into Dan Patrick's spot. ESPN at night on the radio is dumb. They have these like no-name guys that just kind of host like a Sports Center versions of the radio shows.
Yeah, but again, think about why that is because
nobody's listening to the radio.
Either that, or if they are listening to games,
right?
Like baseball, hockey, football, whatever. But this is interesting because I think that this might be a case where ESPN's hubris is going to finally start catching up with them a little bit because I really think in their minds they believe they can plug in whomever. And that spot that Colin Cowherd's in do just as well because it's ESPN radio. It doesn't matter who we put in there, but I think it does to some extent.
One of the top stories on Awful Announcing is ESPN's returning to an old mantra: nobody's bigger than the 4 letters, right?
Yeah. Except that's not true.
Not at all.
No.
Especially when you have a rival like Fox Sports 1 that has the financial backing that it does. A rival that has the financial backing necessary to pay for top talent.
I don't think ESPN will ever lose its control on overall numbers.
No.
ESPN it's like CNN, right? If you go into any hotel or walk through an airport,
the news
CNN is always on. It's not MSNBC, it's not Fox, it's not whatever. It's CNN.
But this is something that I think that we should think about with this, though. Yeah, it's CNN, but let's be honest. Does CNN have anywhere? Yeah, it's still got the name recognition, no doubt about it. But does it have any of the, I guess, cachet it used to have?
No, not since they thought a dildo flag was the nicest flag. Not since then, no.
Right. But at the same point, they're still getting the viewers and the money.
But are they? It's one thing to be on in every hotel in America, but you still have to have people that are watching. You know what I'm saying? And look, yeah. I'm not saying this is the beginning of the end for ESPN. I think far from it. I think that of all the things they do, the radio division and Keith Olbermann show that's on an hour or a half hour a night are probably the least of their concerns. But when you're so stuck to that whole mantra of no one's bigger than the letters, that's all well and good, except that we've seen since day one, basically, that's simply not the case. Chris Berman, Charlie Steiner, Bob Lay down through the years. What was the guy that died? The great hockey announcer. I can't think of his name now.
Guy that died?
Yeah, there was he was one of the early originals. I can't remember his name anymore. Tom Mees, I think was his name. But, over the years, there's always been the guys that rose up above it, and that's when you thought of ESPN, those were the names you thought of. Nowadays, it's, it was Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann for a while, then it became Stuart Scott, Scott
Levy, Scott Van Pelt.
Right, exactly. If you keep trying to homogenize it so that nobody knows who anybody is, you become CNN in the hotel room, which is fine. But at some point, somebody else on the other side of the street is going to go, hey, you know what? We don't mind if Olbermann's bigger than Fox Sports. We don't mind if Colin Cowherd is the biggest name on our radio network, and I think it makes a dent eventually.
I think the thing that's also unique when you have to think about sports television is all this other stuff is fine. The sports centers, the original shows, the talking heads, all that's great. What makes the sports network the sports network?
The sports.
The live sport. I think that's one place ESPN won't skimp out.
No.
Is if they need to buy live rights to something, they will pay the money to have the live rights to the NFL, to the NBA.
The NFL is never going to leave ESPN. I mean, why would they? They are the ready-made propaganda machine.
Right. But I think for the long while, in the last 10 years or so, ESPN has had this thing, the hashtag embrace debate, right?
Right.
Which is basically code for watch Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith yell at each other.
Yeah.
Right. And Colin Cowherd. Mm-hmm. And to an extent, Olbermann was that, to an extent. And now you get to a point where they maybe say, well, we need to cut costs elsewhere. What ultimately is going to make us the most money? The live sports.
Sure.
We need to serve the live sports so we can cut some of these opinionated blowhards and to save money there, invest in the live sports, and then in turn have all of our other programs direct them to watching the games, promoting the product, and that sort of idea.
I think it's a perfectly viable plan, but at the same time, you've given a company like Fox an opportunity to step in and go, okay, we can't beat you at SportsCenter probably. We're not going to beat you at the live sports, but all of a sudden there is a niche in your market that we can fill the hole. And that's what we're going to go for here. So now you've got guys like us who say, okay, I'm going to watch, I don't know, the college football game, whoever it might be, Arizona State and Stanford on Saturday. We're going to watch the game there, but when it comes time for everything else, I'm going straight back over to Fox Sports 1. I just don't know that, again, I don't think you're going to see anything come of this in the next 10 years or so, but if ESPN continues down this road where they're so concerned about the personalities, eventually it will start making a dent, I think.
Just to kind of build on what you just said, Greg, it's like, again, this is hypothetical, but, for the sake of the discussion, say Olbermann does go to Fox Sports 1. We talked about it a few shows back about, how he's been really having a lot of conversations that need to be held within the sports universe, I guess. The zeitgeist. I wanted to avoid using that word, but he's having these discussions that need to be had, and it's one of those cases where it's like, well, okay, you can watch whatever on ESPN, but if Olbermann's on, you're going to want to see what he has to say over whatever generic or idiotic crap ESPN's putting on.
Yeah. Again, though, you get back to the same thing. Fox is also an NFL rights holder. Can they push it to a point where they say, look, we're not going to sugarcoat it like other people do? ESPN has to have the NFL because without it, they drop 2 notches. I mean, that you read any book, anything about that company, and what they feel made them was when they got that NFL contract. Fox, while they wouldn't be crazy about it, they could survive without the NFL. So they might be more open with their little tiny sports network to be more critical and to be more open about the way they see things with the NFL, as opposed to ESPN is. So I think that this is nothing but upside for Fox.
Also, this goes back to a television strategy. When you are the underdog, you've got to punch up. You can't punch any further up in the sports world than the NFL, which is why I think Olbermann is ultimately great fit for Fox Sports 1, because Fox Sports 1 is the underdog to ESPN. ESPN's cash cow is the NFL. ESPN kowtows to the NFL. Keith Olbermann isn't afraid of going after the NFL, and so Fox Sports 1 sort of is a very nice place for him to end up because it's all the pieces just fit, because by challenging the NFL, he is indirectly challenging their biggest rivals, who they need to punch up if they're going to make waves.
I agree. That's what I mean. I just think that if Fox Sports 1 is smart, and I think they probably are, they've already grabbed Cowherd. I'll bet you anything he gets a TV show out of this, too.
Oh, of course.
And,
I'm sure his radio show will probably move over to Fox Sports, which is Fox Sports Radio, which is a great move for them, too.
Yeah, exactly.
They actually have a very good radio property, I think. Overall, but
see, now that's the thing though. I can't think of a single host on their radio properties. JT the Brick, is he one of their syndicated shows?
At night, yeah. Well, the thing is, for them, the reason that I know them better is most of their shows that are national now were LA local shows,
right?
Because their offices are out here, and those LA local shows have now become their national shows. So they have guys like Petro Papadakis and Matt Money Smith. They had the Loose Cannons, which were Steve Hartman, Pat O'Brien came in later, but Vic the Brick There's another Brick on there.
You've got a weak lineup when you have two guys named the Brick.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah. But who's in the mornings? Oh, in the mornings they have Dan Patrick on out here.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on most of the Fox Sports Radio affiliates in the country, but he's not Fox Sports Radio.
Right, he's separate. He's his own thing, which I'm still surprised that became as successful as it was without – because that was basically him on his name alone, and that's it. It's been 15 years since I worked in radio, but back when I worked in radio, when you were going – because the AM stations, I mean, let's be honest about it, unless you're one of the big, huge, like, flamethrowers in a big market, you're not putting money into local programming.
Oh, come on. AM radio is the best.
I think so, but that's just me. But you can have a lot of fun with it.
Where else can you get quality morning programming like that? I mean, come on.
But back then, you know, when you were looking for the network to pick up to run on your station, ESPN was the one you wanted because of, of the name recognition. And then, after that, it was Fox and whatever. But so ESPN still has that. But again, if you're not putting any personalities on there, eventually people are going to, because people want to hear personality-driven radio. I mean, you love it or hate it, sports radio is all about personality stuff. It's not about the content nearly as much as it is about who can scream and holler the loudest. So I just think that ESPN is cost-cutting, whatever you want to call it. ESPN just heard that comment from you, Greg, and their solution is to give Skip Bayless 5 new shows. Great. He'd probably actually do really well on radio, believe it or not. But what I'm saying is that they're giving Fox Sports a chance here to make some hay because of their quote-unquote cost-cutting measures. I mean, just imagine for a second if Fox Sports picks up Simmons and Cowherd and Olbermann. That's instant credibility, basically. Not that they didn't have it to begin with, but that's now you've got people's interest. Now people are going to look more so than they were. I personally don't know why you need anything more than Jay and Dan, but... Well, I think that was another good move they made, though.
You stole them from us. You stole them from us.
I actually, if I want to go watch a sports highlight show, I go to Jay and Dan. First I see if Jay and Dan are on, because the backup guys they have on Fox Sports are just so bland. Well, it's because all the money's tied up in Jay and Dan. Well, yeah. But they're actually, most of those guys I've seen before, I'm like, you're all ESPN News cast-offs. They're the guys that were stuck on ESPN News and were never going to make it to actual ESPN. So they said, well, we'll go to Fox Sports 1. And now it's like, well, now no one's going to watch you. But extrapolate it out for a second, though. Okay, so right now they're picking up personalities here and there that they can get, and they're trying to make a little bit of a name for themselves. They haven't got the live sports, although they have picked up a few things. They've got NASCAR now, which is a nice piece to have. But what's to stop them next go around in NFL negotiations from going, you know what, now we want the ESPN package for the NFL. Right, well, because right now Fox Sports has that. They have the NASCAR, they have MLB games. They said college football. They play college football games. Yep. They're picking up the Bundesliga, which is the top flight German soccer league, which I know you don't care about, but it's a semi big deal. But let me tell you what they sound like right now. They sound like 1983 ESPN. They have everything except the NFL. And if you look at it, parent company. Does Fox have enough money to go out and grab the NFL from ESPN? I think they do. Yeah, and I know that if the NHL hadn't closed off the TV negotiations to only allowing NBC to have the rights, I have no doubts that Fox Sports would be right at the top bidding for it. The NBA is out there to be had. I mean, this is just. I understand ESPN, they want to cut costs and all that, but at some point you've got to stop and start looking at going, how many openings are we going to give these guys before they're finally going to cash in on one? Fox Sports has the live sports properties, and they have the money to spend. I mean, and this is kind of the stuff that we talked about when they first started up. They made it out to be that it'd be a lot more immediate than it is, but now I think that they understand that it's a long-term game. Yep. They have the patience because of the money, and they have the properties to sit on to slowly build themselves into a truly, truly viable alternative to watching ESPN, if they aren't already. I think they are to some extent already, and their during the day content is still subpar, but that'll come if they get Cowherd, you throw him on in the middle of the day, you have something. If it's just a simulcast of his radio show, or it's his own hour-long Colin Cowherd show. Produced by Fox. And think about this, too. Up-and-coming personalities that are on their way up, they look at this and they go, okay, we've seen what happened to Simmons at ESPN. We've seen what happened to Olbermann. We see how they are about, speaking your mind really at all.
Why would I want to go there? Like, say that there's some big star out of the LA market again that's ready to make the move to a national stage. If you're outspoken, who are you going to pick? ESPN, and they don't pay that well from what I understand either. It's not like you're going to make a lot of money there. You're basically going there because it's ESPN. Fox has got the money. I'm just saying that this might be, again, a very small move of the needle, but I think definitely a move of the needle towards Fox Sports a little bit. And I love it. I think it's great.
This is going to speak to a lot of our demographic at the boards. I know you guys probably won't get it, and that's all right. But a lot of this reminds me of the immediate lead-up to the Monday Night Wars in pro wrestling, where you had the WWF at the time, very complacent, thinking that the brand was bigger, and then you had WCW, owned by a media mogul who was willing to go out and spend for talent and make a big name for themselves.
Well, I totally understand that reference because I watched that excellent documentary that, even though it was done by WWE, still did a pretty good job of telling the story. And that's a great analogy, Mike. That hits it right on the head. Mm-hmm. They're resting on their laurels right now, and you've got a young and hungry competitor out here that's going to make every move they can, and you just basically handed them 3 pretty nice chess pieces to make their move with, is what I'm thinking.
If I'm Rupert Murdoch, in between listening in on British politicians' private conversations, I'm probably, I'm probably calling all of these guys, and they're like, okay, how much is it going to take?
Well, and another thing to think
Here's
about.
Here's a blank check. You write a number that you think is fair on it.
Fox Sports tried this a while ago, where they had all the regional networks kind of line up and play programming at the same time.
Yeah,
but they were
best damn sports show.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But the biggest problem they had is that they weren't all on the same channel. They have that now. They've got their own dedicated channel on DirecTV. I'm sure they have it on cable too.
Yep.
There's a lot of things here that are really starting to get interesting, and I'm with Mike. I think Olbermann, despite the fact that it's Rupert Murdoch, despite all the history and all that, if Fox says we'll hire you, he should go there because it's the best spot for him.
In fact, I'd be like, hey, you know what? If I'm Rupert Murdoch, I'm saying, you could pick your time slot. Also, I don't care if you make fun of me. I'm a billionaire. Say whatever you want.
To a lesser extent, it makes Murdoch look like the bigger person, strange as that sounds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to allow you to take shots at me. We got way off of what Cowherd's going to do next, but do we have, other than he's going to do a radio show, do we really know much else besides that at this point?
It's not confirmed that he's going to Fox Sports, but it says all signs point him going to Fox Sports.
Where else would he go radio-wise? I mean, if you think about it. I don't even know. I mean, I know Sporting News used to have a network. I don't know if they still do it anymore.
He doesn't have anywhere. He doesn't have the cachet to go out on his own.
No, not like Dan Patrick did. No,
not like Patrick. Not like Rome.
Rome was always.
Those are the only two, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, Rome was always. He started out as his own thing, right? He was on Premier Radio Networks.
Yeah.
So okay, all right, but that's not like a that's basically a network that provides content.
It's not. Isn't that what Patrick's on?
I don't know. He might be. I'd have to check. But Premier's more like a syndication company. They aren't like a Fox or an ESPN or whatever.
They're not a controlling network so much as they are just like, here's content.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're like a Paramount or whoever, that did Star Trek and stuff. But yeah, that's going to be good stuff. I'm going to be curious to see how this plays out. Speaking of the Angels, back in first place.
What'd I tell you?
Yeah.
What'd I tell you?
Yeah.
So make that 3, because I also predicted the Angels would win the division.
Yeah, I was telling
back
Mike.
In first place, and their first rain out yesterday since 1995.
What the hell was that all about?
It rained.
No. I know, but I thought there was a drought going on out there.
Yeah, there's a tropical storm that came up from Cabo and Baja California.
Did you guys save all the water?
People were outside with pots in their yards and buckets.
We're doing our best. It's still kind of cloudy today. I don't know if it's going to rain again.
I was bummed. The Angels were on Sunday Night Baseball. I was all excited to watch, and it was pouring the rain, man.
Yeah. By the way, remember a few weeks ago when we were asking, well, what do I need to get back into baseball?
Yeah.
It's Mike Trout.
That is very true. One of the reasons why I'm so pissed off at the whole steroid era is because Mark McGwire got me back into baseball, or got me interested, I guess, in baseball. I guess there's no shame in saying, exciting players get you interested. LeBron James got me interested in the NBA for a long time.
Same here.
I had completely written it off after Jordan retired.
If I have an Angels game on in the background, and that's how I have to watch most of the Angel games, to be perfectly honest. It's just like, okay, what's happening? Oh, it's 2-0 in the third. Okay. And then they'll be like, when Mike Trout up to bat, I'll stop and I'll just watch what he's doing.
Yeah, there are very few guys in baseball that I'll stop what I'm doing just to watch them hit, and he's one of them. It used to be Albert Pujols, still is to some extent, but Trout, as much as I hate to admit it, I do that when Bryce Harper comes up. Stanton, used to be with Cabrera, but not so much anymore because I just don't like the Tigers. But yeah, Trout, I mean, honestly, and I've been watching baseball a really long time, I am trying to think of a guy that he reminds me of from my era, and I can't come up with anyone.
No, my grandpa keeps telling me, he tells me what all the other baseball experts keep saying. He keeps telling me I haven't seen anybody like him since Mantle.
Yeah, I would say, other than the fact that Trout's not a switch hitter, but other than that, yeah, I mean, just an amazing ball player.
Mm-hmm.
He can do it all.
He really everything.
Yeah.
Hit for average, hit for power. He can play. He can catch. He can run.
Man, what
he has his arm isn't elite level throwing arm, but he can still get guys out.
Sure. I don't think Mantle had a great arm either. I never saw Mantle play, so I really don't know.
If you're catching the ball, you don't need to throw guys out.
Yeah.
Right.
That is true. That is true.
So, yeah.
I mean, leading off the All-Star game with a home run.
Yeah.
Completing his All-Star game first at-bat cycle, which is amazing. Single in his first All-Star game, double in his second All-Star game, triple in his third All-Star game.
Home run
in his fourth All-Star game.
Yeah.
And 2 consecutive All-Star game MVPs.
Like I said, I can't think of anyone that from my era watching baseball that I can compare him to.
And the only criticism I have of the guy, he is boring.
Zach, you're a hockey fan. You should be used to boring athletes.
He should seem exciting. Really? Wow.
He's dull by hockey standards.
That's really. That's hard to do.
If he was a hockey player, he'd be, we're just trying to get pucks in deep.
Play a full, 60 minutes.
Everybody's got to pull on the same rope. Shut up. So Mike, I mean, what do you think? I wouldn't have got the opportunity if it wasn't for my teammates. It was a solo home run, Mike. Yeah, but
their support.
They all high-fived me when I got back to the dugout. That was pretty sweet.
But it's good that he got your baseball groove back for you.
Well, my Mike Trout groove.
I think that you look at baseball, I think you look at it as like a sport where it's like football or hockey where you sit down and you watch all of it. Baseball's never been like that. You got to just kind of weave in and out of it. It's like a big fabric that you just kind of work your way in and out of. Other than maybe a playoff or a World Series game, I can't think of the last time I sat down and just watched an entire baseball game beginning to end.
Yeah.
Where I was just
I think it depends on the situation too. Like if it's once you get later in the season and if it's like a tight race and you need to win the game and every outs, like as the stakes get raised,
baseball in May,
every decision is much more important. As opposed to, like you said, Mike, baseball in May.
Well, that's the thing, though. You're not supposed to get excited about it. It's just, like I said, it's just something that's there that you bounce in and out of. I mean, to me, if the options are on a Tuesday night in May, I'm watching baseball or the latest episode of American Pickers, I'm probably going to go with the baseball game. Well, anyway, so I was telling Mike earlier that I thought on the off chance that we talked about baseball's first half that we might want to go back and revisit our preseason predictions to see how we're doing. You guys interested in that real quick?
Sure. I mean, do you have them written down?
I have them written down, yes.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Okay, well, first I want to point out, we'll do this as we go through it, okay? In the American League East, we all picked the Orioles to win the division.
They are currently 4 games back and 3.5 out of the wild card.
Right, and they're behind the team that none of us picked to do anything, and that would be the New York Yankees, who I don't know how. No.
I don't know how they are where they are.
I don't either.
While we're mentioning the Yankees, congratulations to my high school football teammate, Robert Refsnyder, for getting called up to the big leagues right before the All-Star break.
Nice.
Started out his career a nice 0 for 5. But then he got a single and hit a home run over the Green Monster.
Cool. And you went to high school with him, huh?
Yeah, we played football together.
Wow.
Way to go.
Very
Rob.
cool.
What a thrill that must have been for him to step out there and be in the show and hit one out at Fenway.
Yeah, I mean, his first big league game was a Yankees-Red Sox game in Fenway. It's a big deal.
Yeah, no kidding.
I guess he was like the highest-rated hitting prospect in the Yankee system before he got called up, and now he's playing second base.
Very nice. So anyway, so in the American League East, we all had the Orioles. None of us picked a wild card from the East.
Well, I think was
that's
smart.
safe.
Even the Yankees, they're leading the division, but they're not a particularly good team. The whole division is garbage.
The only thing we really got wrong was the Yankees. We thought they would be worse than they are, but other than that, we pretty much nailed it. The Central's where it gets interesting. Two of us picked the Kansas City Royals, and then one idiot said that the Royals will not be as good as they were last year.
Oh, who was that?
I don't know. I don't see the Royals doing it again.
You don't see the Royals? I mean, they were one game away from winning the division.
Yeah. Look, I love the Royals. It was one of the best things that have happened in a long time in baseball. I just don't think that they're as talented as they played last year.
Okay.
Mike made two predictions that, had he not been joking, would have made him look like a stone-cold genius.
Minnesota was in the cellar with 20 games back.
I don't know, guys, you got to take into account the Twins have those new golden home uniforms, which I'm sure will inspire them to victory.
Yes.
And here they are sitting in second place, 6 games out.
I think that's interesting, though, that the Royals have the best record, and Minnesota is the wild card leader, but they're 6 games behind Kansas City.
Yeah,
because I thought they'd be good, Kansas City, but they're tearing it up.
The Kansas City Royals had an internal plan to make a World Series this season. Last season was actually them being ahead of schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's entirely possible that last season's loss might not have fazed them as much as a lot of people might have thought it would have. They are probably just still on track to where they want to be.
And then I picked Detroit to win the division, and they are a game under 500 in third place and really probably not going anywhere. I also made another bold prediction out of the American League Central. And you ready for my big dark horse idiot pick of the year?
Okay.
Uh-oh.
The Chicago White Sox.
What?
Get the wild card, yes.
How?
Because they've made some quiet, nice improvements this year. I really think they're a better team this year. They signed Melky Cabrera. Come on.
Well, that's the season's over. Just give them the World Series.
And where are they, do you think? They are in last place.
Well, I mean, outside of Chris Sale, that team's garbage.
Yeah. Well, I thought the addition of Melky Cabrera would be all the difference. I was joking when I said that. And in out west, this is where Mike would have really, if you had just left it alone, you would have been hailed as the greatest baseball prophet of all time.
In the American League Western Division,
it's the Houston Astros' time to shine, because we all know that they have that 2015 is the Astros' year.
They were in first place up until what, about yesterday?
They were in first place until the last day of the All-Star break, or before the All-Star break.
I did also pick the Angels to eventually win it all.
We all picked the Angels to win the division, and I think all three of us had Seattle as a wild card. Didn't work out so well.
No.
And in the American League, our wild cards were Zach and Mike. You guys picked Detroit as a wild card. I had the Indians, who probably not, and Seattle was our other wild card.
So we got, Houston, Minnesota, and Kansas City.
Yeah.
3 of the best teams in the American League. And the Yankees, who should be, who are a lot better than they deserve to be. Really.
I don't understand how they're doing it. I mean, I haven't looked at their roster lately, but isn't every guy on that team like 39 years old?
I mean,
yes.
and A-Rod,
I
don't know who the
A-Rod, who was snubbed.
Who's pitching for them? I don't even know.
Well, I know Sabathia is no good anymore. I don't know if he's still pitching for him. I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it. And then it pisses me off to no end that A-Rod's actually having a good season.
I know. People were he got snubbed off the All-Star team. You think anybody was going to vote for him to be on the All-Star team? Come on.
Like Mark Teixeira. I thought he had disappeared off the face of the earth.
All-Star.
I know.
I saw him in the All-Star dugout. I was like, oh, hey, what's up? Where have you been?
Okay,
hey, Mark Teixeira, remember when you signed with the Yankees and that gave the Angels the compensatory pick to select Mike Trout? Thanks for that.
Brett Gardner is an everyday player, having a decent season. He's an all-right player. Brian McCann, I don't know how he's doing it. Mark Teixeira coming back again strong.
But the question that you have to ask is, can they maintain it? I mean, given how old the team is, will they be able to keep this up the entire season?
Given how bad the rest of the division is?
I was just going to say, considering how bad that division is, they don't really have to be that great, do they?
I mean, maybe the Orioles, like, if they can maintain some consistency, the Yankees fall off. It's only 4 games, and Tampa and Toronto are 4.5. If they just, like, maintain kind of a middle-of-the-road pace like they all pretty much are, and the Yankees slip a little bit, then maybe you have something, and of course ESPN and everybody else will make it up into a big thing. The race in the AL East. It's like
kind of like the race in the NFC South, right?
Yeah. It's the tallest midget.
They're 9 games over 500 right now, the Yankees are. So that would put them, let's see, at the end of the season, that would be, like 91 wins? That'd be more than enough if they played 500 ball the rest of the way. They're going to end up with 91 wins, which I think would be plenty to win that division.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, we all picked the Orioles in the East. Kansas City, you guys picked, and I had Detroit. We all picked the Angels in the West, so we're not too far off course here. Yep. In the National League East, we all went with the Washington Nationals, and they are in first place, so that was a good pick.
Yeah.
I picked the New York Mets as a wild card. Zach, you picked them as a wild card out of spite against the Cardinals.
They're 2 games back.
Yeah.
Both the Nats and the wild card.
Yeah. In the Central, Mike, you went with the Pirates. Zach and I picked the Cardinals. And out west, we all 3 had the Dodgers. So we're doing okay there.
Yeah.
Again, another
the league that none of us are fans of, we're actually doing better in. Makes no sense.
I'm a big National League fan.
That's right. Because you're just a fan of baseball.
You're a Cardinals sympathizer.
Yeah. I am. I have to admit it.
You're one of the, as Bill Murray called them, messengers of Satan.
No, I'm not one of those. I'm like Switzerland in this. I'm neutral.
Okay.
I just step out of the way.
You just encourage them, Greg, when you do this. You encourage them.
Another one of our genius predictions was somebody said, I don't think San Francisco is going to be very good this year. That would be me again.
I mean, well, they're 3.5 out of the division. They're 1 back of the wild card. They're at least contending.
Right.
I don't. They're kind of an unremarkable.
It's an odd number year. They're not going to do anything. I'm just like, that's just how it works, right? Like, no, this is not going to happen. Next year.
In our wild, we did pretty good. I think we really kind of did okay in the National League. We got all the division leaders right, except for Mike with the Pirates, but he wasn't far off. He had the Pirates, and they're only 4.5 behind the Cardinals.
They're 4.5 behind. They're 3.5 up on the wild card spot.
Right, and in our wild card picks, I had the Mets. Mike picked the Cubs as one of the wild cards. I picked the Pirates as one of the wild cards. Zach had the Giants and, I believe, the Pirates as the wild card. So we're doing all right, all things considered.
Go Cubs!
The Cubs are right in it. They're only, what are they in the wild card?
They're in a wild card spot right now.
Yeah, they're in a wild card spot. So
49-41.
That division's
not bad.
That division's tough.
See, Andy, last week it was all in jest.
Yeah.
It was
Mike
all
taking the greatest cheap shot, or I shouldn't say the greatest, the easiest cheap shot anybody could take.
Sometimes it's hard to resist the low-hanging fruit.
What do you guys think is going to happen in Chicago if that team ever wins the World Series?
It might burn down. Vancouver almost burnt down. Chicago will burn down, or at least the north side.
I don't know. Boston handled themselves. I mean, other than turning into raging assholes, they handled themselves pretty well after the Red Sox won.
That's just how Boston copes in general. They just become raging assholes. Like, Chicago
have you seen what happened with the Blackhawks fans? Cubs fans will come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden be, I've been a Cubs fan since 1945.
Yeah, that happens with everybody, though. That happens with everybody.
But I mean, like people in Montana or Utah.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine how deified Madden would be if the Cubs won the World Series? I mean, look what they did to Ditka.
Everybody will start wearing his glasses, and they'll build a statue.
If that team wins the World Series, what you're going to see happen is you're going to see the next generation of kids born in Chicago are the boys are all going to be named Theo after Theo Epstein, and all the girls will be named Madden.
See. I don't see why they get so excited. Chicago, they won it back in 2005. I mean, that's not that long ago, guys.
Well, see, and that's the thing that's amazing, too, because the White Sox broke like a...
87 year. It was 87
when they won. And you think that would be just as big of a deal, but when you're in the same city as another team that has 100 years of the same thing, it's different.
I used to remember a lot of the Cubs
fans. Chicago's a funny baseball town.
I just remember a lot of the Cubs fans getting really salty about that when the White Sox won it. They're like, now we have to put up with this now.
Nobody pays any attention to the White Sox. I'd be willing to bet you that the only person in captivity that picked that team for a wild card spot was me.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just thought we'd revisit our predictions at the halfway point.
I don't know. I don't think we did half bad.
I think we did really well, actually, compared to how our predictions normally go.
Have you ever been to the White Sox Stadium?
No, I have not. Have you?
Yeah, I went and took a tour. I didn't go to a game. We were on a trip to Chicago to go see the Angels play the Cubs a while ago. And we had like an off day. And so we took there's a train stop right next to the White Sox field. And I don't know. It's pretty unremarkable, I think.
From what I understand,
it's not in a fantastic.
I've heard it's in a very bad neighborhood.
From what I understand, it was built in that really awkward time between the end of the multi-purpose stadiums and the advent of the Camden Yards era, everything in one stadium. It's like a perfectly serviceable stadium. It's just entirely underwhelming compared to everything that came after it.
See, I've always heard that it's not as bad as people say it is. That it's not a bad
probably
park.
not.
Yeah.
It's probably bad, but it's not.
Look, once you've been to
you have to go to a game there.
Once you've been to Tropicana Field, anything is going to be serviceable.
Compared to Tropicana Field, the White Sox Stadium is the best park in all of baseball.
Didn't the White Sox once threaten to move to St. Pete?
Everybody threatened to move there, but yeah, that was actually the big rumor.
And now the Rays are threatening to leave.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that was the White Sox, and it was the Indians for a while. The Giants were going to move there for a while because they'd built this. I think they called it the Suncoast Dome at the time or something like that, and it was this beautiful state-of-the-art stadium.
You can still find Tampa Bay Giants shirts online.
Really?
Apparently it was an 11th hour decision to keep them in San Francisco.
I just want to know how bad the stadiums must have been back then for people to think that place was state-of-the-art.
30 years ago, I'm sure it was fine, which is the problem.
The problem with that was that it was built like 10 years before it even had a team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, it hosted hockey games before it hosted baseball games.
The Thunderdome.
The Thunderdome.
Yeah, well. But, so anyway, there's we're doing okay so far. We'll see how we end up in September when we talk about baseball again. Until then.
We're in the second half. We'll talk about it a little bit more than before. The games kind of are important.
Yeah, they're getting there. We're getting into it. We got the trade deadline coming up. That'll be interesting. With so many teams in contention, though, you're not going to see a whole lot of movement, I don't think.
The other thing is, I can't remember the trading season being all that exciting in baseball recently at all.
Well, last season was interesting when the Oakland A's basically sunk themselves.
That's just what the Oakland A's do.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of, I finally saw Moneyball.
Exactly, thank you!
An unremarkable movie about an unremarkable franchise.
Yep.
Who thought it would be a good idea to make a sports movie where the inspirational underdogs lose in the end?
Well, the other thing that was very obvious to anybody that knew anything about those teams, this is a team of we're struggling to pay guys. You had Barry Zito and Miguel Tejada was the MVP of the American League that season.
Remember that pitching staff they had?
Zito, Mulder, Hudson. They didn't talk about those guys once. I think he walked by Tim Hudson in the locker room once and say, "Hey Tim, you gonna throw a good one today?" And I think that was the only time they mentioned Miguel Tejada outside of them being on the board. They're superstars, and that was the other thing that pissed me off. They have the scene where they have the big banners outside the stadium of the star players and they tear them down. So then when the next season starts, the only guy that they put a banner up of is David Justice. I call so much bullshit on that. You're not telling me that there's not a Barry Zito poster?
That's the thing about that team and that movie that always cracked me up. You had just a lights-out pitching staff, okay? Chavez was really good at the time.
Yeah, that's the other guy who they show his back at one point in the movie. Yeah. And it's okay, great.
Zach, we had to cut these guys out so we could have more scenes of Jonah Hill.
But I mean,
more scenes of Jonah Hill, more scenes of Chris Pratt trying to be Scott Hatteberg.
Right, you come up, you decide that Scott Hatteberg is the key to your whole season. What they did by making him a first baseman and capitalizing on his on-base percentage and all that, smart move, I'll give him that. But come on, let's quit acting like you had David Justice, Scott Hatteberg, and a bunch of guys that were lucky to play Double-A ball. That wasn't the case at all at that team.
Yeah, well, I understand you got to take some creative license.
Yeah, but
to play around with the truth, basically, these were the things that made this team. Well, no.
There's creative license, and then there's just shoveling bullshit by the ton.
And again, The plot of the movie is scrappy underdogs find a way to beat the system and win, and end up losing to team that basically bought a championship.
Well, that's the thing. They open the movie with like the season before when they lose to the Yankees, and it's like, oh no, the Oakland A's fall in the playoffs, and then they do this whole thing, and then they end the movie before. Guess what? They lost in the first round again.
So all in all of this was for a net gain of 0. Good job.
Yeah, can we start Moneyball 2 with just a shot-for-shot remake of the first scene of Moneyball 1 and just change out the clips of when Billy Bean's sitting in the stands listening to his radio, change out the games and the teams? Because this was the same thing. Didn't they lose to the Yankees that year too?
Yeah, they did.
I don't think.
Or no, they lost to the Twins. They lost to the Twins.
Have they made it?
The Yankees, and then the Angels beat the Twins, and then guess what? The Angels won the World Series.
That's right.
Haven't they? Have they made it past the first round of the playoffs since the '80s when they won the World Series?
No, I don't think so.
They're the San Jose Sharks of baseball.
I was with you. I mean, I watched it. I'm like, okay.
I still want to see Draft Day. That seems like it would be better, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of enjoyment as a sports movie, Draft Day is better.
The Browns should just hire Kevin Costner. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
Couldn't be any worse, right?
I mean, what? The team's going to suck? Oh, no.
Because it's summer and there ain't a whole hell of a lot to talk about, we're going straight at fuck God.
Because it's summer, Greg can't speak correctly.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zach's Tabs.
Zach's Tabs.
Oh, come on. You can do better than that.
Zach's Tabs.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
We'll start with the one that might have prompted Mike.
Mike doing the summertime blues version of the Tabs there. Okay, go ahead.
The last week before we took the Ask Us Anything show.
Huge success, by the way.
Indeed.
The Wimbledon final was contested over in jolly old England.
That's tennis, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Fuck tennis.
Well, there was a breach in royal protocol that didn't allow a famous Brit to get into the royal box at Wimbledon for the final.
Oh, what was that?
Lewis Hamilton. He's a Formula One driver.
Okay.
One of the more successful ones in the world. He got an invitation to the royal box at Wimbledon for the championship match at center court. Oh, what a thrill it must have been.
There's got to be a joke about royal boxing there somewhere.
It's kind of gross because she's old.
Yeah,
the Queen's like in her 80s, Greg.
Right.
I was thinking more like the princesses, but okay.
So Lewis Hamilton was invited to sit with the Queen in her box.
See, I knew there was a joke in there somewhere.
Well, the problem is he arrived and was turned away. For what reason?
Can I answer this?
What?
You don't go near the Queen's box without buying her a drink first.
No. He didn't. He violated the royal box's dress code.
Okay, sorry. I'll try to quit acting like a fifth grader. Go ahead.
Because there's a dress code. He didn't have a suit jacket. He did not have a tie, and his shoes were not up to the code standards.
Were they sandals?
No, they were like those leather boat shoes without socks, I think.
Oh.
Well, I've known that Wimbledon's always been very particular about how you dress when you go there, right?
Oh, even the players all have to, like...
They have to wear white.
Everybody wears white.
Yeah.
Yep.
If the Queen of England invited me to, like, hang out, I'd show up in, like, fucking tails.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think a suit would be appropriate? I don't know.
A top hat, maybe?
Yeah,
monocle?
I don't know what...
I don't know. The whole British Isles are just always under a constant overcast.
Well, I was watching the British Open this morning, and it was raining, if that surprises anyone.
Shocking.
But yeah, so no, Brit was not allowed into the royal box at Wimbledon.
Okay, I'm just going to leave that hang there. The listeners can make their own jokes at this point. Okay, what's next?
As we try to go away from Greg's dirty mind driving us into the gutter here.
The dirty mind, just adolescent, I think, might be more proper.
A forensic linguistics professor at Aston University in England compiled a bunch of data to determine what the most popular curse words are in your part of the countries.
Oh boy.
The first map is is the map for the word asshole. Now, if you look at the map...
We're not going to be able to be on WKRP this week, guys. Just saying.
Oh, no.
Turns out, asshole, not so big in the American South, but huge in the American Northeast corridor.
Well, you got to get those Boston, New York types. I can see that, yeah.
That also translates into Phoenix and northern Nevada and southern Idaho. Why would asshole not be a big word in the South?
They're polite.
Too polite,
I suppose.
Southern hospitality.
Southern
maybe.
hospitality versus a bunch of New Yorkers in Boston. Hey, move out of here, you asshole.
Either that or they've got a different word that they use for it. The same idea. I don't know.
Well, if we scroll down to the next map, the next word is cunt.
Oh, God.
England's favorite curse word. Also, again, not used very much in the South, but huge in the even more northern parts of the Northeast. Bostonians and Mainers love their
their C word.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to say that word in the house.
The next one is kind of a mellow curse word, just darn.
It doesn't even qualify as a curse word, do you think?
See, I was thinking before I clicked on it that darn would be big in the South because, again, gosh darn.
No, darn is big up in the Midwest and the central parts of the country where it's a lot of these farms. Darn, corn can come in this season.
Minnesotans and,
gosh darn. Don't you know the Gophers didn't do so well? They missed the touchdown, darn it. The next one, of course, everyone's favorite curse word, fuck. So it has many uses, but interestingly enough, it makes kind of a ring around the country. It's huge in California. The whole state of California is the dark orange. Then you go through Phoenix and Tucson, Santa Fe and Albuquerque, El Paso, San Antonio, Houston.
Well, here's the thing. Look at the Texas map. There's that little strip down along the border there where it's not as popular, and then it becomes popular again. I don't understand that.
And it's also not surprisingly very unpopular in Utah.
Are any of these popular in Utah? Gosh.
Darn did really well in Utah.
Darn. Yeah.
Gosh is popular in Utah. Of course it is. Of course it is.
The next map is shit. Also, again, the South, the southern belt that strolls up through Washington and into New York City, but it's pretty blue elsewhere. And I don't see that.
But again, it's that weird thing of Texas. Look how in Western Texas, it's bright orange, and then right down the middle, no one uses it, and then in Eastern Texas, it picks up again. So
wouldn't you think though that
as opposed to the other maps, this one is either very blue or very orange. There's not a lot of middle ground here.
Wouldn't you think though, with that word and how common it is and all that the whole map would be orange?
Well, maybe it depends on how they're using it. Are they using it as shit, or I'm going to take a shit?
I don't know. It just seems to me that one would have been easily the most popular of the bunch, but I guess not.
Bitch has the same kind of map structure as shit does. Popular in the South, not as popular in the great expanses of nothingness that is Montana, Wyoming, Idaho.
Okay, here's another one. Damn. Go ahead.
Yeah, damn, again, in the South, very popular, not as popular elsewhere.
I could see how damn would be a Southern thing.
Yeah.
Damn Yankees.
Yeah.
Now, the next one isn't really a curse word as much as it is a slur. I don't know why it gets into the same discussion.
And let me say I'm embarrassed at how popular it is in Ohio.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Faggot is it's very popular in California, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona.
You need to make the distinction, though. It is not popular along the coast, the civilized part of California. It seems like it's more...
L.A. County, Orange County, and San Diego are all in there, but it misses the Northern California coast, so San Francisco and such. And that makes, obviously, a whole lot of sense.
Right.
How do you feel about this, Greg? Kentucky uses the word faggot less than Ohio.
Like I said, I'm embarrassed that it's as orange as it is in Ohio. I'm not surprised, but I am embarrassed by it.
Kentucky has one up to you, Greg.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Again, and then weirdly, not as popular in the South. Maybe they just don't run into them as much because they all left.
I think that in the South, it's just a case of using a different slur for the same idea, probably would be my guess.
Again, and then we move on to another very soft one, gosh.
I like how gosh is the one that gets a lot of play in Utah.
And it has virtually no one in the Northeast uses it. Like the state of New York, entirely solid blue.
If you use gosh in New York, they'd probably just call you a shithead.
They'd say, you need to move to Utah.
Asshole.
And then this one I think is pretty surprising too. Motherfucker is really only used on the American Southwest border.
Yeah.
Arizona, southern New Mexico, and Southwest Texas, and then up in Maine and New Hampshire.
Yeah, that is.
You would have thought Samuel L. Jackson would have made that more popular.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Also, of course, very blue in Utah.
Yes.
Although there are more mothers in Utah, but
interesting.
I'm a motherfucker and a just straight up fuck kind of person. I use shit from time to time.
Okay, so on the swear words that we do use, which one do you use the most?
Oh, fuck.
Fuck, easily.
Yeah, me too. And I'm trying.
It's the most versatile.
It really is. It's like the utility infielder of swear words. I mean,
right. It's a noun. It's a verb. It's an adverb. It's a connecting phrase. It's it's whatever the fuck you want it to be.
Yeah.
The last thing I have, some crazy Germans playing a sport that I don't know. It's called radball.
Okay.
And essentially what it is it's
if it's
like
German, it must be very organized.
It's like soccer on bicycles inside an arena.
Well, this sounds like it might be interesting.
I don't know what to do with it.
Let's take a look. Oh, wow.
Radball, which translates to wheel ball in German.
Zavia
It's been around since the turn of the 20th century. Wikipedia says the most successful players were the Popsisil brothers of Czechoslovakia that were world champions 20 times between 1968 and 1988.
They don't have a goalie.
It's hard to do things on bikes as it is, Greg.
It's 3 sports in 1. It's what makes it so rad.
Oh, did you see that little one-timer they just ran there? That was nice.
It is the Via-Ball. It is the Uber-Spot.
It's like the size of a volleyball court, 2 guys each team, riding bicycles.
They use the front wheel to move the ball around.
And they, kind of swing the bike around to kick it.
See, I think you got to get you got to make the goal bigger and get some sort of goalie in there because it's just too easy to score.
You got to have a goalie. The goalies are on a unicycle.
There you go. How great would that be?
I just made radball better.
That's right. He tried to go all the way down.
Invented this. Like, what did you say? Hey, we like soccer on our feet well enough, but what if we played it on bicycles?
I'm with Mike. They need a goalie. He needs to be on a unicycle. That would be perfect.
Wearing some kind of elaborate headgear, like a fencing helmet or something, like that would be awesome.
I don't know what to do with that.
I don't either. I think parts of it are kind of cool.
This, more so than handball, looks like something a PE teacher made up on the fly.
It'll be an Olympic sport before you know it.
You know what? You never know.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm not even kidding, really. I'm serious.
Oh, I know. Because you think of something like handball, and it's like that's not even a thing in the United States.
Well, when that thing where they run around with the stick with the streamers on it became an Olympic sport, I thought all bets are off at that point.
Oh,
Anything.
wow. Yeah. I'm watching this video. You've got people waving flags in the crowd.
Yeah, they're way into it, man.
Wow.
I promise you there were NBA games that didn't get that big a crowd this year. Like Charlotte.
Exactly. How is it that Charlotte was the first one that came to mind?
I believe that is it, unless you want to talk about Atticus Finch had a new... Or not Atticus Finch. Lee Harper, I'm thinking Atticus, is in the To Kill a Mockingbird. Had a new book. Isn't she dead?
No, apparently.
I guess not. And if she is dead, then we've really got a scoop on our hands here. Probably bigger than that ESPN thing Mike gave us earlier.
I don't know.
So with that, follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports. Go to the website, basicallysportshow.com. Subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and, of course, the YouTubes. And I think that wraps it up for us this week. So I'm done talking.
Okay.
See ya.